There is a rare heat wave going on right now in London. It has been gloriously Caribbean for the past few days, and such good weather conditions always make me think of my plastic point-and-shoot cameras. One of such plastic beauties is the Halina 160. Made by Hacking in the 1980s, it was a step up from the previous Halina 150. It's basically the 150 plus an inbuilt flash and less the accessory shoe. I guess the thinking was, now that you have the inbuilt flash, you do not need the accessory shoe to mount the external flash. What you will need though is a pair of AAA batteries to run the flash. The Halina 160 is such a simple camera. It has a fixed focus 33mm plastic lens. It has a single speed of around 1/125 and 3 ISO settings: 100/200, 400 and 1000. Actually, the ISO settings simply change the aperture. God knows what the actual apertures are, but I can only imagine it would be something like f5.6 for ISO 1000, f8 for ISO 400, and something like f11 for ISOs 100/200. I suppose one could devise a kind of test for this, but life's too short. What you can do with this though is compensate exposure by deliberately lying to the camera about your true ISO. The flash fires independently of the exposure settings, since there is no light meter of any kind. There is an on-off button, so it fires when it's on and it doesn't when it's off. Simple. The film goes in the back as usual. The back door is open by pulling the rewind lever. The film roll goes on the left-hand side and is passed through the spindle on the right-hand side as usual, ensuring that the gears are aligned with the film sprockets. The back door has a window through which you can see what film you have loaded. That's very useful. There is a gear wheel for advancing the film manually. Both wind and rewind are manual. I actually like that. It makes the camera less noisy when shooting candids, for example. The shutter button is on top of the camera, right next to the frame counter window. The frame counter resets every time the back door is opened and closed. There is an inbuilt sliding lens cover that also disables the shutter button, preventing you from wasting film. I really appreciate that. When the film is done, there is a button at the bottom of the camera that enables the rewind lever. Composition with this camera is via a straight-through viewfinder. There are no parallax lines or guidelines or any information at all. It's just a window which gives you a rough estimate of what you're getting. That's it. So this camera is from the simpler days of photography. I think Hacking designed this camera with holidays and outdoor parties in mind. The size is perfect, it's very ergonomic. With the film and battery loaded, it's still very light. It's plasticky without feeling fragile. And it's a lot of fun to use. It's a true point and shoot, no need to worry about settings and conditions. But if you do want to worry, you can worry just a little bit. You can decide to use flash or not to use flash. Or you can change the ISO settings to something different if you want, which is really the aperture setting. The photos are nothing to write home about, of course, technically speaking. But with the dreamy, fun-filled effect you get with this plastic lens, who cares? I mean, who writes home from holidays nowadays anymore anyway? But seriously though, lomographers would love this camera. It's got all the requirements. The vignetting, the dreamy rendering of images, and of course, you don't need to think. And because the batteries are for the flash alone, winding and rewinding are manual as I said before, they last longer than other similar cameras. And when the batteries die, you can carry on shooting and not thinking. Until next time, arrivederci.